Very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's uLaw webinar. In today's webinar, we're going to be covering the reporting, the analytical engine, and the insights engine that actually transform the data that you enter into the uLaw platform into documents, reports, and graphs where you can derive meaningful information out of the data that you've actually entered as you manage your practice through the use of uLaw. Okay, so predominantly we're going to be talking about how best you could use the reports, how do you maneuver within the product to generate the right reports, and the types of analytics that we're able to give you, that we're able to provide the types of data, the types of pieces of information that large law firms use in their day-to-day operations to make strategic decisions both about the financial implications, the use of their resources, both personnel and financial resources, and also strategizing really which marketplace to go after as they expand their legal practice, right? So it's not a CPD session, so reiterating that today's webinar is not a CPD session. It is being recorded and will be available to you as early as Monday next week. But it's certainly going to be a fun-filled product demonstration of the key capabilities around reporting and analytics, okay? And I do recommend everyone who's joining me today to kindly use the phone numbers provided, and I've mentioned it in the chat window, to kindly dial in using the phone numbers, because if you're listening in sometimes on the computer, the audio quality isn't that great. So just a gentle housekeeping, if you can kindly dial into the phone numbers for better audio. Like every other uLaw webinar, today's webinar, of course, has a specific agenda. We're also going to be introducing, in addition to this specific agenda, a new feature that we've included in our product, and that's the 360-degree analytics and insights that we've been talking about for a very long time within the uLaw platform. But essentially, the agenda, we're going to talk about how do you best assess or analyze the data that's in your uLaw platform, right? So as a practitioner, whether it's a solo practitioner or a large law firm that's using uLaw today, there's a lot of data that's being inputted into the system, right? From client information to file or matter information, to financial information, both from a legal client management perspective, or even your own office business management perspective, right? And other specific data, such as additional parties, various other relationships of individuals that collaborate within a particular file. So we're going to talk about how do you best understand the value of this data. The data that's going to be represented, of course, have different facets, because certain data components are required for compliance nature. So the Law Society also wants you to tell the story about the data that you've captured through the information that they're looking to derive out of your legal firm's business, right? So the stories and the information they want to capture is how have you best managed, for example, your trust dollars, ensuring that the audit trail of the ledgers and journals tell a cohesive story about any, ensuring that there aren't any trust misappropriations, making sure that you've done the eligible trust transfer as per the guidelines, making sure you've not overdrawn on your trust account, making sure you can deliver the journal entries that has all the information that they need about why a specific transfer occurred. So those are the data points that are being collected, and you, of course, have the responsibility to report that in a specific template that is expected out of you. And then there are the reports, of course, for the CRA's perspective. As a business owner in Canada, you, of course, have the responsibility. If you're filing taxes, of course, you have provincial taxes, That's a report as well. So really, when you file your taxes, you're basically generating a provincial report. If you're in Ontario, you're filing a HST report, as it's called, that predominantly tells you how much of HST you've collected and how much of HST you have paid in a certain term. And of course, the difference between these two would reciprocate to whether you owe the government money or whether you should expect a refund from the government, right? So that's another form of a report that translates the data in your system into an information, but that is being required by another party. And then comes the more important fundamental reporting, analytics, and insights engine that actually runs behind the scene in uLaw. That is to enable you as the business owner of your own practice with the right timely information, with the information for certain questions that you didn't even know how to ask, crunching the data, providing you that information in various different formats, whether it's a document, whether that's a graph, whether it's even on your mobile app, various different form factors. We're going to highlight a lot of that in today's demonstration as to how uLaw empowers you as a business owner and gives you the types of information that allows you to make the decisions that empowers even a large law firm. The same questions are being asked. They just have the right tools, techniques, and the process to derive the information and act on it. So what we would love to do for all our clients, especially the sole practitioners, is to enable them, empower them with the same set of tools at that same low cost. No additional price here, really. We're not selling anything. We're just selling the features that already exist. Talking to you about how best you could use those features that you've already paid for and maximize the value out of the product, as well as maximize the value out of the information that you can derive out of your own practice. Okay? So yeah, we're certainly going to talk about the more recent insight engine that we've introduced into the uLaw product. So we've always had analytics, we've always had reports, and we've had some basic insights that pretty much give you a visual representation of what you eventually generate as a document. But we've now taken it one step further, and we've integrated close to big data and AI capabilities to kind of give you the types of analytics in a timely manner, if you will, that crunches data across various different components. So if you're looking at a Law Society report, it crunches all of the financial numbers against your client and file. If you're looking at your CRA report, it's crunching the numbers against your business expenses, for example, certain reports. But the analytics is now going to tell you things of nature such as how compliant is your firm? What are those reports that you have not generated at all that's actually going to deem you to be non-compliant, right? It's going to give you information about who were the last outstanding clients that have not paid you over a certain term. Which areas of practice are you seeing the most profit? What expenses in your business categories are you certainly seeing a huge surge in? So those are the types of questions that we're also enabling you with these insights. Whether that's revenue-based insights, expense-based insights, whether that's, very importantly, from a day-to-day perspective, we also have information such as work in progress. What aspect of your business have you already put the effort into? Which files have you already docketed, but for whatever reason you have forgotten to either invoice or otherwise have not acted upon that docket that you just did? We remind you of that information. Are there any work in progress disbursements? So very critical, right? It comes down to the bottom line of the business itself. If you've actually paid for a disbursement but have not yet included it in an invoice, because a disbursement is a recoverable expense that only when made part of an invoice can you have the right to recover that from your client. Even if it's just a trust transfer, you still need to include it in an invoice. So we remind you with that kind of data and information. If there are investments that are being made to this law firm, of course, we give you the spread of where the investment capital has gone in, what's the draw by different various investors in the business, so on and so forth. And we'll get into it in a minute. And at the end of the day, our goal as a software company is to be able to utilize the tools that we actually have built to enable our clients who use the uLaw platform to give you the power of a large law firm. And that's pretty much it in terms of presentation and slide share that I really wanted to talk about. Of course, stressing the importance of the right data, because data in, data out. So if you are seeing certain reports, if you're seeing certain pieces of information, all of that is dependent and almost as a given that you have inputted the right data in, right? Because garbage in, garbage out. So if you cannot vouch for the data in, what you're going to see is pretty much a reflection of the data that you inputted. Now, if you do see something that you don't like, or if you see something that's really not right, at least it gives you an opportunity to go and change that information, re-enter that data, whether it was taxes included expense or taxes not included expense. When you see the report of your HST, you probably appreciate that, and you can go back in time, change that data entry itself. So reporting actually helps you with data validation as well, which is a very important, very subliminal act of why a report exists, is to also help you take the right corrective measures. So I'm going to quickly jump from my presentation to a demonstration. And often I use my Playground account, logging in as Mr. Roger Moore, who's my legal practitioner here in this perspective. Okay? And I hope, and I sincerely hope you're able to see my screen. I'm logged in, of course, and I see my first landing page, which is essentially my dashboard. Okay? Let me first draw your attention to the main menu areas where you can actually access these reports and documents. For someone who's been using uLaw for a while, you probably appreciate that all our documents are grouped under this one term called document generation. Almost every screen has a document generation. Almost every screen has a button where we call it an action, where the action button is the data entry component. Document generation is the component where you extract data out of the system in terms of documents and being able to generate them. A subset of the document generation is a hotkey or a hot button, as we're calling it, in our floating menu options. And one of them is a very specific subset of the overarching documents and reports, bringing it to a specific nature of its business need, which is the compliance set. So if you click on compliance, of course, these are the documents, reports, and set of pieces of information that you need from a compliance perspective. But if you actually go into our document generation, you do see a section called reports. Whether you're in your contacts, whether you're in the quick view, which is I'll highlight in a minute of some of the newer ones that we've added here. So you have reports right under quick view, which are time-bound and file-based. And of course, you have under matters, which is really your files. That's where you manage your files, create the files for a client. And if I click on document generation, you have specific compliance-related documents with the hotkeys, of course. And then you have the reports that are more specific to the matter itself. So before you generate a document, we would really like for you to ask yourself, what is this document regarding? What is this report regarding? What data am I actually trying to deliver and capture? So depending on the nature of that data and report itself, you can maneuver within the system to access it all under this one term called document generation. And of course, the meat of it in the financial aspects of it is under accounts. Again, you have document generation. So what you see is what you get. And under that, you have all of the reports that are related to the accounting and the accounts related pieces of information. And if I actually go into my calendar, we have reports under that as well, which are all more time-based, if you will. Right? So these are data components, these are reports, these are insights into whatever data is translated into for this section. So for example, if you generate a timesheet, it is a report, of course, that tells you how best the individual resources have utilized their time. If you generate a revenue by employee, it's the data that's going to be captured and grouped and give you the information saying which employee has generated how much revenue over a period of time. So it really comes down to the question and the nature of the data that you're looking to extract out of the uLaw system. And last but not the least, we have a very separate section that we call analytics to keep it very straightforward. And in the web version of it, you have this advantage of being able to compare analytics over a term period. Right? This is not reports. These are graphs and visually engaging representations of the data themselves, and gives you the opportunity to now compare and contrast rather than having to generate two separate reports like old school and compare them side to side. You could still do that. You can generate a report for the month of May, you can generate a report for the month of June and compare them side to side, or you could simply go in and say, what was my fee book like categorically for the month of May? So let me say for the month, right, which gives me the data. It tells you that almost $10,000 was from recoverable expenses. The next best thing was criminal at about $1,900. You can draw a pie chart as well, but let's keep it at the tabular level for now. And what I'll do is let me compare that with the fee book chart category for the current month. Now, this gives you the ability to compare the information. So one is to first digest the information in whatever format you best understand, right? So you could see 68% came from recoverable expenses, hopefully 12% came from criminal, and that's really where the revenue came from. Whereas in the month of June, you had almost 75% coming from small claims, about $5,000 of revenue from small claims. Close to about 15% of your overall revenue came from, again, expenses. So you could see a drastic difference between the 66% in May to the 15% in June. We have right from insights, specific quick data points. So if you really want to know, quick snapshot, I want to know how I'm doing for this whole year. From January 1st till date, if someone were to tell me, am I a profitable business? We could tell you that right away. Of course, with the leap of faith that the data that's behind it, right, is prudent, and hopefully you've done the reconciliations to confirm that it's prudent, because once you've reconciled a particular month, you pretty much have done the due diligence to compare it with the bank statements, and you've made sure that the transactions exist, and if there are any transactions that were missed, you know the reasons why. Right? So the more you reconcile, the more credibility the data has, and the more credibility the data has, the more credibility the information that you derive out of it has. And the more credibility you have out of that information, the more credible your strategic moves would be, because it's all based on what you see. Right? So for the particular entire year, we can tell you what were your top revenues, right? And we can tell you how much of revenue you've brought in so far, how much of expenses you've had. Single snapshot. 52,000 is the revenue so far, 39,000 is the expenses so far, and that's the profit and loss insight. If you want to do it month on month, again, you do the same thing. You compare and contrast. So not only are we able to give you the information, we're able to give you the information that you can contrast. Now let's take a deeper dive into some of these reports. Not to overwhelm you, but there's certainly quite a lot of reports and insights that we provide you right out of the base from the product itself. What you would see is as you start to begin and enter all of the data over a period of time, on an average we've seen anywhere from 2 to 3 months is all it takes for you to start to appreciate the analytical engine that's running behind. Because till you get to that point, you're pretty much focused on your marketing efforts, you're focused on that first client, you're focused really on revenue generation. It's really during maybe a certain lull period, maybe over a weekend is where you can relax and very, I would say, mindfully go through these analytics so that you can make the next strategic best move to improve your business. So if I were to start off really with the contacts, this is where I have all my information with regards to my clients, with regards to all the additional parties that were involved in my legal life, right? And if I were to go under document generation, one of the important reports, or a couple of important reports that I would draw your attention to is that of the source of contact. And as the terminology sounds, source of contact, and that's why we have it under the contacts really, is this is really the storytelling and the data that's captured. And again, for the information to be prudent, as I said, the data needs to be validated and needs to be credible. We even tell you at this point, and I'll draw this report so that you can appreciate it, as to what best you can do to help us improve the credibility of the data. Right? For example, let me run the source of contact report. It is actually a Law Society report, but it also has a double whammy effect of it being a marketing report for your business. So for the month of, let's call it June, I generate this document. You can also generate an insight that has a visual view right on the screen. I'm just getting started with showing you what a report looks like that has the data in black and white. So let me open up the source of contact report for the month of June. Not totally black and white. There's a bit of color. It's a fair game. You've got 25% spread over referrals, over the Google marketing source of source of referral, if you will, Facebook advertisement probably, and then you have internet advertising. Now you can see right at this quick summary, we tell you for the month of June, you've had a count of 5 contacts that have not yet been categorized. And then you have, of course, 4 that have been categorized, and that's the 4 that's spread across between these 4 categories, right? We don't stop there. We actually tell you what are those 5 names that you actually have not given us a source of contact. So if I were to look at this report, right, and this is how I would love for you to approach any reporting with any system for that matter, is to be able to always ask, what's in it for me? This is great, but what does this mean? What this report is telling you is here are the 5 contacts that you've added in this month that we don't know where the source of contact came from. So your action point is to be able to give us that source of contact if prudent, if that makes sense, if you know it for that matter. If you don't know it, then you just have to deal with that we're telling you that it does not exist. And you would, of course, internally reconcile that. Yes, it does not exist because, you know what, I did not ask for it. I don't know. And that's fine. So for those who are not able to see this, there it is. I'm just going to zoom in. So let's look at Mary Poppins, okay? And I'm going to go back into the system. And immediately what I'll do is I'll actually search up this person. Who's this interesting person with this interesting name, whose source of contact I don't have? So there's Mary Poppins. This could be yourself. This could be your assistant, really depending on the nature of your business and the types of resources that you have in your arsenal. Now, when you actually did a client intake, which is really the ability to bring a new client into the system where you've done an app to clients, this is a simple intake form that we use to capture basic information about that client. right? Because that's not only Law Society need, but it's also a bigger need for your business to get started with as much as information as you can capture about this client. And right here we ask you, at the time of data entry of this particular client, is can you tell us maybe where did this person get to know your firm from? So how did Mary Poppins get to know Roger Moore? Right? So you have a various set of categories. You could go from advertisement to word of mouth. Let's just go ahead, just for the simplicity of the analytics. Let's say this came from Google. So this would potentially be your second for the month, right? But if you notice, we already had, I believe, a Google here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and update the data. Now I've helped improve the credibility, given it more meat, if you will, for the specific area of data capture. And let me go ahead and hit save. So you've done yourself well. You've looked at the report. You've assessed it. You've asked what does that mean to you. Now you've done the right step of acting on it. And once you've done that, what you should expect, of course, is now the system to be a true friend and a partner in crime to give you the right data, to give you credible information that now you can act upon. Now if I generate that source of contact report for the month of June, of course, you know exactly what to expect, but that's the simplicity of any reporting analytical engine, is to be able to capture and have credible data to give you credible information. So now this piece of information is totally different. From 25%, the web Google just went up to 40%, which means a lot, especially when you have a lot of more clients than just the 6 or 7. Because that means that particular source of marketing is really working for your business. If Google has about 60 to 70%, maybe your Google advertisement, your paid ad campaigns are actually working very well. We have a lot of our clients who actually use specific keywords within these categorization to help them better appreciate that line of source of contact. And if you go down, you see the categorized list just went down by 1. And the web Google went up by 2. Right? And this dropped down as well. So that's just to give you a taste of how data in, data out works. Okay, so let's hopefully build that credibility that if you have the right data, uLaw can give you the right data out. But what are the different facets? What are the different varieties of reports that we can give you? Are we just giving you simple stick reports, or how detailed do we allow you to go is really the question. So let's move forward with, of course, other areas where we can do this. If you want to generate an aging report, you can either download it as a document, or what we call as a uLaw Insight gives you right away. And you can do this right on your phone as well. If you've downloaded our uLaw app, either on your Android or iOS platform, you are able to derive this information. This client is great because, they don't owe you any money. That's pretty much Mary Poppins was done with. They've done all the payments that they needed to. Invoice list. You can do this in PDF. You can do this in MS Excel. You can do an insight that shows you right on the screen if you're just looking for a quick piece of information, or if you're the person who really likes to download it, open the PDF, we can do that as well, right? And the beauty of the cloud is, as that runs behind the scene, of course, you can do other things. But let me move on to showing you that. So it was just one invoice that was done on the 5th of June for this particular client for a single matter called Mary vs. Stella. And the file number and the invoice number is readily available to you for you to quickly access. And the invoice date was 5th of June as well. And the fact that there was a single invoice and they don't owe you pretty much tells you all you need to know about Mary Poppins as a client. Of course, if you want to do a deeper dive to know more about the file itself, then you move on to the next leg, which is under Matters. So if you want to go under matters for Mary Poppins, and if your question really is about the further details about this matter, in fact, we had opened 2 matters, but it was just the Mary versus Stella matter that had an invoice. The storytelling happens with the question mark. And if you click that to yourself, this gives you a quick snapshot of what happened in this matter. It tells you that you had a deposit in trust of $665 that was completely withdrawn. That means you've done the eligible trust transfer. It was done on the same day that you invoiced, right? And that's pretty much it. So $665 in, $660 out. And you had 1 invoice, and of course, that storytelling happens here. If you want to reprint that invoice, go back in time and really look at what that invoice looked like. You can recreate that invoice. Or if the client wants that invoice again, you can reprint it and send it to them. So here it was 500. So here's a different storytelling. This is the devil is in the details, so it's more granular right now. What encapsulated that $500 bill was $500 of legal fees, which included these meetings, with the taxes. So that tells you a story too, that you did collect tax for this particular client in this particular month. And that's a story that is told in a report, both in the expense book, in the ledgers, in the journals, as well as your HST report, or any provincial report, right? It tells you the disbursements. So that's the recoverable expense. It tells you in your disbursement journal. So that data tells a story in that book. It tells you that you actually got a retainer to begin with. So this tells you your client's trust ledger story. And then tells you that the amount due is 0. That tells you a story too, that the outstanding balance, trust balance, which is an important component of your trust reconciliation report for this client, is 0 as of this particular date, right? Nothing much fancy about that, straightforward. Once again, the devil is in the details. So if you click on document generation, you of course have all these other documents that you can generate, but you can actually generate the level of timeline that you need. So if you really want to know the accounting aspect, it tells you when anything happened in this matter. There was a trust deposit to begin with, then came a expense, which was a general expense, which is great. Tells you a story that it's a general ledger. What was it for? It was a court fee. Tells you a time. And then you did the trust withdrawal. You moved the money. $500, $565, and the $100. And that's pretty much it. Tells you by the timeline. One of my favorite reports is that you can actually generate all that trust general, importantly the settlement accounts. Many different types of areas of practice have certain documents that are very important. The settlement account pretty much tells you everything you need to know about this file in a report. And this is something that you can share with your client too, right? So you can see clearly there was no HST for the disbursement. There were 2 transactions, one for $565 and another for $100. That's what added up to the $665. So when you get audited, you're being asked, why did you move that $665? Here is the answer for that, right? And the invoice balance. So that's always the question. What's the balance on this particular client? And what's the story behind that 0? That's the information because of the data in. Okay? So you've got different variety of types of reports and information. If that's not enough, if you want to move on to the accounting, and you want to understand the expense book. You can understand it for the month of June, which is actually a compliance document, by the way. This gives you, of course, the total expenses for this particular month and the various categories that we're under. Okay? But if I go into my trust ledger, and just so I can amuse you a little bit, instead of doing it for the particular client, I can actually do it for a specific client if I choose to. But just to give you a feel for what it looks like on a monthly basis, let me go ahead and do the monthly, but I'll also do it specific to a client. And there's that report. I can actually go in and search for a specific client and generate a ledger just for that person. And here it is. So you have many clients with a trust balance still left. There's a trust balance of $171 for Jason, for John Doe. There's about $2,100 for one matter, about $250 for another matter. Right? Goes on. But for Mary Poppins, we've got 0. If you were to generate that ledger report, specific, oh, I think I had the wrong date. You can do that for a specific client. It would just show you the Mary Poppins information. Okay. I would not bore you further. If I look at my general ledger, which is a compliance report, if only the whole world was not accessing the internet at this very time. It tells you the story with information around what happened with Mary Poppins' general ledger. So clearly stating there was $500 plus taxes of $565 was a $100 disbursement that was transferred over from your trust account coming into the general account. That's why when we have our labels, we have them as per the Law Society's guidelines, fees, payments on account, and balance owed. Okay? Alrighty. What other reports can I generate? I can, of course, generate the journals, but let me move ahead. I can generate a revenue report, which I showed you earlier on with our analytics too. I can do a profit and loss, which we ran real quick. You can do the entire trial balance if you like, which is actually a financial report. Okay. You can do an aging report. Who has been paying you on time? Who hasn't been paying you on time? Very important report to know the hygiene of your accounts receivable, right? Because you may be a great legal business that gets the job done, maybe not be a great business in asking for it and enforcing that the payments are done on time. That may be something that you discover new about your business yourself, right? So here is the trial balance based on the different assets and their account numbers, what's outstanding in debits and credits. This is all you need pretty much to really understand your business and where you are with that business. Quickly close out. All right. So now that you know that there's reporting at a contact level, moving on to a matter or a file level, and then moving on from the overarching accounting level, both that are related to Law Society compliance, so you've got all of that here, and as well related to your office, whether it's expenses, because expenses are basically based on both disbursements and office-based expenses, right? We're looking at the aging report right now as we generated. You can have your borrowings report, so all of that is very much under here. But with just another 15 minutes left, I'd like to draw your attention to just a few more items. One of the most interesting reports that we find often our clients being intrigued is the pro bono report. So there's actually a document that we generate. If I were to give it to you for the whole year, it tells you over the period of this year, what are the clients in your portfolio that have benefited from any freebies that you've provided. Okay, so starting from the January, you could see for a telephone conversation, you've had Henry Michelin, a client meeting for 30 minutes was a pro bono. Then there was Mary for about an hour. It also tells you groups set by the clients and the maximum percentage of the pro bono commitment that you've had for that time period, and the total hours. And you multiply this by your hourly rate, and that's pretty much the total pro bono dollars that you've spent, right? Whatever that reason may be. It could be a strategic move. It could be that you have a purpose of doing this. This is not a bad graph at all. Out of the 100%, you've had about 95% billable, about 4% that's pro bono, right? Not bad at all. Here's your aging report. Of course, this is a test database and hence has taken forever to give you. But when it gives it to you with pertinent information. So we do an aging report typically for about 6 months. So starting November till date, you know that John Bell has not paid you that $4,000 out of this report since November 30th, 2019. So that's the information. That's the data that's inside it, converted into the information that we're presenting to you in this format of a report. Just like the source of contact, there's a couple of things that you can do right now. One, typically what happens is that maybe John Bell actually paid you that $3,900. You just forgot to enter it into the system, which has a problem, which is maybe you have not reconciled that particular month well, because it would have obviously expected that month coming in whenever he paid you, because the bank would have that number. Let's say this $3,954 was actually paid in May, right? And you have actually reconciled it in May. You must have captured that misbalance between the bank and uLaw. Technically, you would have corrected this then and there, to be quite honest, but let's assume that you haven't. Having this report allows you to do that. So just like that source of contact, you would go into the John Bell matter. So this really comes down to, now what, right? Now that I have this information, what am I supposed to do with it? All you have to do with it is, if you really have received that payment, tell uLaw that that has happened so that we can catch up with all those transactions that have occurred in your business. Now, there's another report that tells you one step further. It tells you about any trust balances or eligible pending trust transfers that you have moved, and I'll move on to that as well. So let me jump into Quick View, and that's where that's well hidden for those who are looking for it. And under Quick View, I have some very interesting reports that I'd like to share before I close up today's webinar. First and foremost, a Law Society requirement is to print all of your active matters. And for those who've been looking for where they are, again, seriously, this is a report that's being asked. You can generate all matters that could take forever. But let me do this saying when they were created by. So I'll say I want all the matters that I had created starting 1st of June till now. So do you want all the matters, or do you want just the active matters? Because uLaw, of course, allows you to categorize your matters as active, closed, and archived. And let me go ahead and download it. There you go, less than 3 seconds. You have the list of all of your active matters that you've created starting this month. It has the file number, it has when you created that file, what's the title of the file itself, which client is this file for, and the status of it, and when was the last time that you worked on this file. Because that tells the story too, right? If you've been working on a client, and let's say the last modified date was November 2019, then really the question is, what's happening between then and now? Why is it stalled? And even worse is if you actually have a trust balance with this client, and if it's been there for a very long time. Sometimes trust balances exist for a few years, and there are Law Society guidelines for how long you can hold trust balances in your bank account on behalf of a client, right? Making sure you're not bearing any interest on those deposits, right, and balances. So there's many different side stories, really, if you will, from the pieces of information that we capture that we tell you in these different formats. The screenplay, if you will, comes out of this report. Okay? All right, let's move ahead. Work in progress. So you're putting all this effort in, especially if it's a growing firm. You have multiple individuals that are putting all the dockets in, or maybe there's an assistant who's helping with putting all the dockets in. And if you as the owner, part ownership even, want to really know what dockets have been put in, where are we this month, you could just go ahead and generate this work in progress report. And in a snapshot, we tell you, here are the 2 clients, and that was the last activity date. So as of 19th June, for John Doe, you have an hour and 20 minutes of unbilled hours. Okay? So you go into John Doe. So what do you do with that, right? So I'm really like taking it from how do you generate that report? What information does it tell you? What do you do with that information? So choose John Doe, and you pretty much invoice. That's what you do, really, because that's an unbilled work in progress docket. And once you've actually done that, that report would not tell you that anymore, right? If you go back here and say, all right, what's my work in progress for this month? There you go. You don't see it anymore, compared to just a second back when you had this. It's as simple as that. Data in, data out. Okay. We even have work in progress disbursements, which is very important because that's actually money that you have technically spent already. And if you've paid for an application fee or a court fee and you've not included in your invoice, we're telling you those are your recoverable expenses that you really need to act on. Include them in that next invoicing cycle and make sure that you're in a position to recover that revenue. So work in progress disbursement for the month of June. I'm not sure if there's any data in it yet, but let's find out. There you go. There are no unbilled disbursements, which is fantastic, which is simply awesome. So for it to show up there, let's just, for the sake of it, let's just go ahead and say, let me add a disbursement in this John Doe purchase of house. I'm going to say, add a new disbursement, paid for my general, and I'll say court fee. And let's say there's $100, no taxes. And just go ahead and disperse this client. So that's a disbursement that you've entered. Let's say you move on to something else, you forgot to invoice them right away, or maybe you got to wait till a certain billing cycle that you agreed upon. But till that has happened, you're certainly going to see this report reflect that. So now when I generate my work in progress disbursement, that is right under Quick Views document generation, there you go. You had that $100 disbursement for John Doe. Okay? So each of these reports are telling you a side story of the main picture. My most relevant and a report that I personally enjoy sharing with all our clients over the last 12 years that I've been doing this is the invoice pending report. For any business, it really needs to understand where the money is. And especially in the legal business where you have a lot of retainers involved, you have a lot of trust transfers involved. One of the opportunities missed to make timely revenue is doing the timely trust transfers, eligible trust transfers, that is, from the trust account to the general account. Okay? That's so often missed. And we tell you, of course, this report is over a period of time. We tell you that for John Doe, that's the amount that was previously billed. That's the pending billing. It's just the total billable. Okay? One quick snapshot. Pending invoices. How much of money is owed? And an invoice balance report, which I just drew out of my accounts, document generation under other. This tells you even the pending trust transfers that you've not reflected in uLaw. Of course, once again, if you've been reconciling on time, you must have captured this. Because if you've done the trust transfer in real life but have not yet reported into uLaw, then you're definitely going to see and catch that right then. But unfortunately, what happens is, and we've seen this with a lot of our clients too, is they do all the wonderful work, they dock it on time, they invoice on time, but especially if there's a trust money involved, they sometimes tend to forget to do that last step to make that money, which is transferring the eligible trust amount from the trust account into the general account. Because only when you do that do you when you actually make your money. And I know I am preaching to the choir here, but it's a reality that we're faced with and something that we help with our clients every day. And hence, it's something, so this report is very close to our heart. The invoice balance report, okay? So as that's running behind the scene, let me finally show you the latest and greatest in our analytics. So right under quick view and under document generation, oh, there you go, the power of cloud, multi-processing. All right, what is my invoice balance report? I see this John Doe everywhere. But what's an important component here is the column called pending trust transfer. So for Mr. John Bill, you have about $345.80 that's sitting in trust, because this affects your trust reconciliation report, because that would show as a balance. If this is sitting in your bank and you haven't made your money, then of course that's unfortunately your mistake. So now that I have this report, fantastic uLaw, what do I do with this? Two things. One, first and foremost, making sure that in real life you've dealt with this by doing the transfer from the trust account to the general account. Oh, where it is. There you go. Okay, so you right away open your TD, RBC, Scotiabank, whichever bank you're working with, transfer $345.80. Right away capture that moment in uLaw. And you know what it was meant for. It was meant for John Bill. And there is Mr. John Bill. And these are all test data, so you see a lot of them being archived as we show people how you do it. So let me just code this and mark this back to active. because you'd be able to do that in uLaw to reflect all of that only in an open active matter. And the other one was a family matter. I'll mark that as active as well. And the fastest way to enter that data, to really know how much was owing and what was pending, is really to hit the question mark. Okay, so this real question mark right here, it pretty much tells you what you need to do. So if I click that, it tells you there's $370.18 left to do the trust transfer, which is $250 of legal fee, $67 of another legal fee. Move it from the trust account into the general account. Okay. Of course, choose the date when you actually did it. So this could be in a different date. So uLaw allows you to backdate that. So the next time you run that invoice balance report, as always, you would not see that. So that's how you act upon that particular piece of information. So with just a few more minutes left, I want to show you the level of analytics we're giving you right now. So right under Quick View, under Document Generation, under Analytics. So here are about 8 to 10 different types of reports. It even has an Amuse Me, so I'm sure you'd be interested and intrigued to know what that is. But at different levels, so at a client level, we're giving you the overarching analytics for all of your client information. At a matter level, overarching across all your matters, we're telling you and giving you analytics around the accounts. Like this is a single snapshot about your business, about your compliance, and more. So if I were to click on compliance, of course we didn't get the labeling right, but we've definitely got the data right. Here's your compliance report. It tells you that there's about 357 clients who are not categorized. That's the total number of clients in the firm with a referral source that's not categorized, and it is a law society report. And we tell you and break it down by category. The total number of clients in the firm who are not specifically categorized in the last 90 days. Yeah? In the last 180 days. This is kind of, we break down how did that 357 odd come about over a period of time. This gives you a bit of information as well, right? Look at the extent of this question. What is the total number of active matters created in the firm but have been inactive or not updated in the last 720 days? This is a compliance report because they want to understand, do you actually have an active matter that has not been touched over 2 years or close to 2 years, right? We tell you no, you're pretty much up to date. The total number of matters that actually been archived, active, closed. The Law Society auditors, going back to that print where you printed different matters right under Quick View. We tell you if you've been doing the due diligence of categorizing matters and if you're doing it in a timely manner. Okay, so there's more to it. I welcome you and I encourage you to generate these documents for your own firm today. Let's do the client analytics. All right, let me bring this up. Tells you that same data, 357. All right. So what is the number one category of your referral source? It's the client referral, because you've had 767 clients come from it. Because where does this come from? This came from you capturing the source of contact at the time of client intake. We're not specifically saying it for a date time. We're saying this for your entire firm till date. Number two is advertisement. So if you really want to know what's working, generate this report. It's going to tell you. Okay? Now, specifically to clients, we tell you what pieces of information is missing. Right? So for Rami, there's no address, there's no email, there's no phone number, so we're kind of now giving you insights as to what you can do with this. What are you missing with Chad Johnson? There's no address. Is there a reason why there's no address? How come there's no correspondence address for a client? Right? So something for you to ponder and take action. Total number of clients till date, 790. Total number of clients acquired. All right. What is the name of a client who has a birthday this month? If you have captured client intake form, we even capture that piece of information. Okay, so let me go into uLaw real quick. I could see my screen to have frozen for a quick second here, so bear with me as I bring up my uLaw screen. All right, I apologize, but I'm going to have to quickly disconnect and reconnect to my internet for a sec. Please bear with me. Well, there seems to be a bit of an issue, so I'm going to try and wrap this up and not waste your time. But really, the analytics capability at the end of the day was meant to give you levels of insight such as this. So for you to give you the information that you can act on. So maybe you could use this information to send out a birthday card to Mr. Alex Bunny Rabbit if he's still an active client. That again helps you with the branding, helps you with the marketing. Maybe he was thankful for you to remember, and he's going to recommend you to another prospective client, right? If referral is your number one source. And hopefully I can bring it up, because it seems like I have reconnected, and I'm going to continue to generate. Let me generate the matter analytics, and hopefully you're able to see that. Once again, I apologize for this last minute mix up with the internet, but I am recording this and will be available, so if you want to just catch up in the last few seconds with what I'm recording, it should be available on our YouTube channel by Monday. But essentially, I'm running a matter analytics report that now gives you insights very similar to what we had done with the client analytics at the matter level too. It gives you the total number of matters in the file, the total number of active matters, and the level of granular data and analytics that really would impress you upon how effectively data has been captured by the uLaw system to give you that level of granular insights. Okay? So with that, I'm going to pretty much wrap up today's webinar. Once again, the purpose of the webinar was to truly showcase to you the reports, insights, and the analytics capability of the uLaw system. I welcome and encourage you to run these reports, run these insights and analytics on a regular basis so that you can take corrective measures to ensure that the data residing within your system is up to date, is correct, and can be validated, and you make the best use of the information and take the right steps to improve upon your business. So thank you very much for joining me today's webinar. We will be joining back next Friday at 2 p.m. for our next webinar, and have yourself a fantastic weekend ahead. Thank you.